I apologize. It seems you were disappointed. Apparently, you were expecting something more sinful. I see. Ah, well, hmm. I don't know what to say because I've been so concerned about where the reference points are. I have this book, this one little book. It's all that's left. Do you want to hear about sin? How about the hoarding? Hoarding. I had 2,000 books at one point in time. More than 2,000 books. More than 1,800 of them were about somebody else's history. Or at least that's what I was told. You see, the way things are now, you have to be from a specific family line and a specific geography, a specific actual census roll. And then you're a member of that community. And then there's your race or ethnicity, or maybe if you're on a tribal roll. And then there's the kinds of categorization. Have you been hospitalized? Have you been put in prison? And see, those are ways to identify. And once you identify, and then you're identifiable, you can have a identity. And then once you have an identity, then you can represent yourself, and then you can have things that express your identity, including commodities, like books. I see, but I never thought of books as commodities. I thought of them as something else. And so when I found these books about these particular topics that spoke to me and what I thought was my political perspective and preference, including when it came to debate, argumentation, struggle, resistance, admonishment of those that were not authentic in their bearing relative to their allegedly espoused conviction, well, I felt that I was a part of it, regardless of the geography. It wasn't white supremacy to me. I had more than 1,800 books on the history of the 20th century and the late 19th century political movement developing about the onset of capitalism and the identification of workers as a class and the understanding of class interest and how to address it. It's also ventured into matters related to the understanding of the relationship with the land and the identification of one as a peasant and or some other form of husbander, I suppose you could say, tender of the land, engaging with the land in producing and then assuring that that production was available to sustain people. So somehow I thought I was a part of that. And I had almost 2,000 books. Of those books, at least 1,800 of them. I did a catalog one time. I went through every single book. Name, author, time, did the bibliography, identified it by region and or political tendency. And then all the books are gone now. They've been gone since 2009. They're gone. I thought that there were people that even though their first language was not the first language of most of the people in these books, some of those books were in their first language, or at least the first language they speak now, right? But they had other interests. There were other pressures. They weren't allowed to be a part of that history. Somebody told them they had a different history. Those books are gone now. And I have one. I have one book. And this is a book about law. You know, I never had a legal book. It was history. It was life. It was polemic. Perspective. Policy. Tactics. Trials. Battles. Eulogies. They're all gone. I got one book left. And what is the topic at hand? Taxation. There are only two references to taxation in this book. Let us see. What does it say? I have not read. See, I have never looked through the index. I just have a different relationship. But apparently we're supposed to get a bit more, contemporary? Let's see. I know how to use an index. It's not that hard. Decree on Rates of State Duty. 1973. On February 8, 1973, the USSR Council of Ministers decreed to amend Section 1.3R of the Decree of the USSR Council of People's Commissars of August 29, 1942, number 598, on rates of state duty by adding a paragraph as follows. The monetary appraisal of a copyright and the amounts of author's royalties which pass to the heirs of an author shall not be included when computing the state duty in the total appraisal of the estate property. Ah, I see. So does that mean that you would not tax either my mother's or my grandfather's estate for the state? That would not be considered part of the duty? What about my great-grandfather? What about my mother's grandfather? Because I think he's somebody you're very interested in. Everybody's very interested in him. They just won't say it. Okay, number 2. On income. Let's see what it says. Taxation. Rates of income tax and tax on bachelors and citizens of the USSR who are single and who have small families, for workers and employees receiving wages at their basic place of work of 71 to 90 rubles a month. Appendix to the Decree of the Council of Ministers of the USSR of December 25th, 1972, number 882. I don't know what SOB period means. Sorry. POST period. I don't know what that means. SSSR, 1973, number 1, page 6. Then you have this nice columns here. Monthly amount, monthly earnings in rubles, of income tax without deduction for dependents, of tax on bachelors, and citizens of the USSR who are single or who have small families. The present rates also apply to military servicemen, students, and other citizens assessed for income taxes on the same basis as workers and employees. Second, on raising the minimum incomes not subject to income tax for citizens engaged in handicraft and artisan occupations. 1970, Vedomosti Verkhovnego Soviet SSSR number 3, item 24. The Presidium of the Supreme Court of the USSR decrees 1. To increase the amount of minimum incomes not subject to income tax for citizens from handicraft and artisan occupations to 720 rubles a year. 2. To lower by an average of 15.3% the existing rate of income tax for assessment of the incomes of citizens from handicraft and artisan occupations. 3. In accordance with Articles 1 and 2 of the present edict, to introduce in the edict of the Presidium of the Supreme Soviet of the USSR the following changes and additions. 3. Supplement to edict with Article 19A with the following content from the incomes from handicraft and artisan occupations, taxes collected at the following rates. Amount of annual income divided by rubles, amount of tax divided by percentages per the spread on the rubles. Are you satisfied? Are you concerned about the bachelors? Is that part of what happened? Is that what the Slivoviki are? Is that what it is? Is that what the oligarchs are? Is it left over from some sort of consideration under the Soviet tax code that if you were not a member of a family and you had multiple people to provide for, that you might have a specific duty to the state? Is that why it's more convenient for someone like me to be trans man? I mean, it's convenient, isn't it? And novel. You want that, don't you? You want me to play with you. You want me to play with you. And you want me to engage in what's got so many of my people killed. To pay your fucking taxes. I have no problem with paying my own taxes. If I have a duty to the state, or if I have a duty to the people, it's not a problem. You're the problem.